And good morning, Angela and Judy, Kathy and Karen. Hope you guys are doing well on this cold, but not as cold, but early start to the day. This is a Thursday setup. We got one more day to get through this, what seems to be like a really long week here as of late, doesn't it? Hello, everyone. I'm Wave Meteorologist Brian Good. Welcome to Snow Talk and the blog today / alert day update. It's got many names. But today, obviously, we're focusing on the wintry weather that is on tap to approach. Already is trying to do so now, right above our heads. I'll explain in just a second, and to get you through this weekend. And then briefly, I'll try to update on the trends we're seeing even into next week that I don't think we need to ignore and pay attention to. Not to react to yet, but just to have it in the back of our mind. All right, as always, I'm going to start with the snowboard. We'll cover the items on the list, and then I'll retrack back to the current setup and then walk you through all the different maps, futurecast, charts, mid the afternoon out potential on snowfall, any ice accretion potential, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of different items, but at this point, this is our third round of this kind of stuff in about a week's time here. So you guys are pros. You know how to handle all this. So I'll go through it. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully, though, I will answer them coming up in the next few moments. Of course, you have Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube that you can respond to, and I should be able to see them. I see several already, including Michelle spoke to someone. And a friend in Eastern Kentucky had 9 inches of snow on the ground with another 5 coming today. Yeah, Eastern Kentucky, which, by the way, Monticello, Kentucky. I know I talked about this on the show yesterday, but 22 below zero yesterday. Pretty wild for that cold blast of air. All right, let's get into the snow talk, and then we'll come back around to the current setup. Obviously, the one set up for today and tonight and 2 parts of your Friday will still feature a potential for snow and some ice as far as freeze and drizzle. And there will be some sleet involved. The number of sleet reports is going up to our west. I still think this is not a big system by any accounts, but it is one that's elevated. So certainly use some caution on the area roads traveling for tonight and early on Friday. Still an opportunity early next week as we transition to a completely different pattern flip here, that as the warmer air tries to move in, there is a chance for maybe some brief wintry mix. Usually it's freeze and rain potential. And these events go to rain rapidly. And right now, I'm thinking it's only going to be just Indiana that would have that risk for maybe a couple of hours. And it may even happen before we get to rush hour or anything like that. And you won't even know. But I have it on there as something to just to watch from this kind of a setup. Outside, it looks like it's about to do something, right? It's got that look, right? The dark clouds have been increasing more and more after a pretty sunrise. Now we're seeing the cloud deck begin to lower. The air is still quite dry, though, in the lowest 1,000 feet. So we have very low dew points. So a lot of what you see on the radar, if you're looking at the Wave Weather app, a lot of that looks like it's snowing like crazy. And in reality, it is above us, not to the ground level. So dry air is going to eat away at some of this, which has been accounted for with this event. But it's also the reason why we're not looking at a ton of big problems here, is because there is not a lot of moisture with this system. The one even we had in the core of the Arctic air had more moisture than this one will. So you get the idea that this one's got a limit to it. Hey, the temperature map looks a lot better than what it did before. In fact, Louisville's at 27 right now. Good chance to get to 32 here in Louisville. I don't know how much above that we'll get before we see the reverse start to happen again. But for those of you in Southern Kentucky, I just don't see it happening. So that is the concern. There is a small bubble of warm air that's trying to push in some southern part of the Commonwealth, and you're likely going to stay below freezing. So that's where the freeze and drizzle idea comes into play, and I'll explain here in just a second. The drought update, it's Thursday, so I'll only show you that same stripe that was removed for a while from roughly Shelby County through Okolona and Highview, Shepherdsville down into other side of Ratcliffe, was added back into a drought status. Well, this week it's back off the map again, but we do not have any severe drought anywhere listed in our area. So that's good. It's only just a moderate drought. Same spots though, Indiana and on the other side of Wave Country down in our southern counties, south of parkways. This is sampled on Tuesday. I don't think it got fully even the rain and snow that has happened as of late. So I suspect, I keep saying this, but I suspect the next week's update will look a lot differently with this being reduced. All right, here's the radar. Now, some of the radars we have locally, we are able to usually scan below the deck here, below where what we call vertigo, the snow that tries to fall above our heads and isn't reaching the ground. Unfortunately, those radars are doing a software update today across the Ohio Valley. So they're all down at the moment. So that makes a bit of a challenge on showing you what I wanted to show you right now. But this is a general idea, though, showing the moisture that is increasing. I've been checking some of the ground reports too, back to the west into Illinois and West Kentucky. And while we do not have any official, what we call MPEM reports, I have seen at least some viewer reports come in out of Illinois, Missouri area, and far west Kentucky of sleet. I have not seen much in the way of snow that is coming down there. It's mainly been sleet we're talking about, which is a good indicator that that warm nose is pushing in ahead of the system. Sleet, Angie, good point. Yes, if there is more sleet involved in some of the snow, we'll cut down on totals. Absolutely. Sleet is a snow killer as far as snow totals forecast takes place in anywhere, but certainly around here. So be aware of that. It's very cold air at the ground level. We just are not getting a completely cold profile the next 12 hours. Between now and about 10 o'clock this evening, it's not a slam dunk on being cold at all layers that we need it to be to go completely all snow. Some of you will have snow. Some of you will have that freezing drizzle. Some may have sleet. But the next 12 hours, a little on the iffy side. And let me try to explain that. And it's not easy, but this is looking, let me get rid of my ugly mug there. This is looking at our soundings from the ground up. And really, you're looking at just the two lines there of the red and the green indicating moisture and temperature. All right. I've said this before. Anytime they're close together, you're saturated. When they have gaps in them, as you go way up, as they say, they'll launch a weather balloon and go way up in the clouds, indicates dry air. The crucial part on soundings like this is where the snowflake is born. Where is it generated? And it is generated right here into this zone of the atmosphere. And you can see that there are some gaps there. It's not completely locked in solid. Now, the sounding on the left is Louisville. The sounding on the right is toward Litchfield to the southwest. The one in Louisville has a bit more moisture to work with, even just above that layer. It's not perfect, but we're at, and it's hard to read, I apologize, we're roughly about 84% saturation at that up, which is pretty good, actually, pretty good. So I think majority of what Louisville sees is going to be sleet or snow. I don't see much in the way of freezing rain there. Down into Grayson County, though, yeah, you got a lot more of a gap that is showing up all the way down until you get near that zone that matters, and it's not fully saturated. You're about 82%. If you look at the bottom right, even indicates a freezing rain or drizzle type scenario. As we head into later on tonight, though, the much of this you'll see on most of the soundings is going to be locked in close together and will be fully saturated, and it's snow we're talking about. But for the next 12 hours, it will vary slightly depending on where you're at within our 30 counties. So let me show you future guys. Whoa, that went by really fast. Sorry about that. Let me go slower. All right, here we go. 1 o'clock. Again, much of that we see out there now on the radar and 1, 2 o'clock. I just don't see much of that even hitting the ground. Again, the radar's going to light up over your head, and when you look at the wave weather app, but again, a lot of this is likely not going to reach the ground. All right, so now let me advance to about, say, 5 p.m. All right, now 5 p.m., we're getting that pink shade that is showing up with temperatures near the freezing mark in Louisville, but below it down to the south. This is where you got that chance of a very light, spotty areas of freezing rain, mainly freezing drizzle. It's not going to be overly heavy, but freezing drizzle sticks to everything. Freezing rain, depending on the rate, can actually allow for the raindrop to fall off the edge of a tree branch or off the deck railing and fall down to the ground, and you don't have as much what we call ice accretion that way. But when you have very light amounts of freezing drizzle, it's basically like walking outside and, you know, like when you look outside and you see the grass in the morning in the bushes in your yard and they're all covered in dew. It's that kind of covering that freezing drizzle will do. It'll stick to everything. So you can get some a little like coating there on your bushes, your trees, your sidewalks. And main risk for that still looks to be across our southern county. So you get down toward E-Town and Bardstown area and point south, especially down around Grayson County and Adair County, be aware. And this is going to be falling on top of some snow you already have. So it's going to make it very crunchy sound when you walk on it. That's how you'll know if you've got freezing drizzle, if you hear that crunch. All right, now we'll get into about 8 p.m. Overall, still mainly looking at a freezing rain type scenario, but starting to see more and more of it turn to snow. Again, we're cooling the column down on that sounding. So now we're getting the saturation where we need to, where the snowflakes are generated. And this is going to be a decent snowfall rate. I mean, moderate snowfall coming down, especially near Louisville and east. That's the zone to really watch for some decent snow that could be coming down roughly around the 10, 11 o'clock hour to about 2 a.m. We will likely get at least large enough flakes coming down that accumulations will happen fairly quick. But it's got a time limit to it. It begins to move off to the east. Now, remember, there is a second wave to this. The second wave will then move in the wee hours of your Friday. This batch of snow will be relatively lighter but fluffier. It's more of a dry snow like we just had. So it'll blow around a little more across the roadways and on top of some of that ice you all had in Southern Kentucky. So they should give you a little bit of traction maybe. I don't think it's going to be deep enough to help you entirely on that, but hey, we'll take it. And then once we get toward mid-morning on Friday, this is after the morning commute, after most of the buses, if there's even school tomorrow, after the buses have run, it's mainly just flurries and snow showers and very cold for the rest of the day. And then we get bitterly cold at night. So that's the storyline for today. Well, again, not much happening between now and about 4 o'clock. I can't route a few spots where sleet may get reported, or you may see a few flurries flying, but the atmosphere not exactly saturated until after 4 o'clock. Still a lot of dry air to overcome because of the deep freeze we just came out of. Once we get into the evening time period, 5, 6 p.m., we will start our narrative across South Central Kentucky. We'll watch you first on the evening shows. We'll be talking about that. Your reports, I can't stress this. In this scenario, we have a lot of cameras that we can track for snow. We have 10 of them in the area. But when it comes to any type of freezing drizzle scenario and ice accretion, we can't always tell that on camera. So we need your reports. So your photos are absolutely helpful in this scenario on the Wave Weather app. Easy to do on the Wave Weather app. It's on the news app as well. If you scroll down to submit your photos, there is a button you just tap, upload your photo or your video. We'll take a video, just shoot it sideways. Shoot your video, fill out the information, hit send. It goes right into our systems here. And you not only will you may see it on TV, but it helps us on social media, and it helps us in getting it to the Weather Service so that they are aware of where the atmosphere is in your area. What stage are you at? How truth to the reality of what the modeling showed and the reality are beginning to match up. So we can all help each other in this kind of scenario. So I'll deputize you all as meteorologists for this afternoon, but just for this afternoon. I'll take it back later. So that's the snowfall part is not going to be overly heavy just because of the duration more than anything. This happens relatively fast. This is not a slow, big storm that digs in the Ohio Valley and sits there for a good 12 to 18 hours. Then it lifts out. It's just got a quick wave tonight and another one in the pre-dawn hours on Friday that's lighter. So speed is going to be against us, snow lovers. But here's some of the model projections. And I know the first one you're going to see is going to be our in-house graph model. And it's like, ooh, that's a dream right there to see that kind of snow. But it's got a lot of moisture in its profile. It's the only one that's doing that still. And it did it with the last one. And it was way overestimated on the last event. So right now we can't account for that one. Here's the NAM model. Fair. I like it. It's probably not reading the snow in Southern Kentucky very well with the idea of sleet or freeze and drizzle getting involved. So it's probably reading some of that as all snow. So I think anything around Louisville and east is likely going to be mainly snow, and anything in Indiana is going to be snow. But notice the trend of east more than west. And we saw that similar with other systems too. Here's the HRRR. Love what the HRRR is doing here. It really does account for that snowfall. Once we push that freeze and rain band north and becomes more of a snow event around the 11 o'clock news tonight, midnight, this is where your big flakes will be coming down and your main accumulation will begin. And for Louisville, I'll show you the map here in a second, but Louisville's going to be very, very close. And then Indiana, it looks like a gap between the two. And honestly, there is, because it's one wave and then two. So it's accounting for maybe a bit of spacing is what the HRRR model is doing there. Fair. GFS tries to mesh that a little more, but I like what the GFS is doing. I know you're going to laugh, that little gap over Louisville. We shouldn't laugh, though. We really shouldn't laugh because it may very well happen. Here's the Euro. Love it. I think it's got the storyline well. It's not overdoing the snow in Southern Kentucky because it's accounting for the precipitation type issues that we'll have in the area. And it's betting on more in the snow in the central bluegrass area and then also to the north and east of Louisville. So I like what it's doing there on those. So what do we think on this? Well, when it comes to ice accretion, and this is going to be very light, a tenth of an inch of ice is very light. But as I've mentioned several times, any small amount can cause slick railings, sidewalks. Your car door will have that casing a bit and get stuck. You'll need the ice scraper just in case. So if you're anywhere south of parkways, Grayson County to Adair County, just be aware of that. Can't rule out that if the warm layer or we don't have the ability to generate a snowflake in the atmosphere when moisture arrives, it would be freezing drizzle even all the way into the parts of the Louisville metro. So there is still a chance we could get a light glaze this far north. I just don't think the duration is going to last very long at all before we quickly allow this to fill in on that sounding and we get the full-on snowflake to develop and begin to fall. So here's what we're thinking. And again, not a big system, generally an inch or less. And I think I-65 is a fair line to kind of look at. I did try to account for a little bit of a backwards trend here that may develop on some of the snowfall. And we may have to push this back a little more of a bump backwards, because what I'm noticing is when this blob here, if you will, of the freezing drizzle moves northeast and gets into a bit of a colder profile, which is very close to I-64, the snow is going to really enhance here. And this is where you get your big flakes coming down. As this happens, there is a slight backwards drift to that band of snow that tries to build right into Jefferson County. So there is a chance there could be some overachieving here on the eastern side of the metro and east. And it could be dramatic enough to where, just as an example, J-Town, Fern Creek, maybe Okolona, but J-Town, Fern Creek area could end up with, say, a little over 2 inches of snow, and you get toward Dixie Highway and PRP, maybe a quarter of an inch. So even in Jefferson County, there may be quite the range from one end of Louisville to the other. That would not shock me whatsoever. So be aware of that. It's going to have a sharp cutoff. I just don't know how far back this is going to build, because we'll get some snow from this initial wave, and then we'll get some snow with the backlash of the second system overnight tonight, early Friday. But most of that is pretty light, and that second one's going to be blowing around because the wind's going to get strong. So a lot of it will just blow around. So it'll be similar to the last snow event where it's hard to even track it or measure it because it moves everywhere. But I really think this little wave here, roughly, again, 11 o'clock news to about 2 or 3 a.m., will be interesting to see how much that back builds. And if that's the case, that's certainly going to fill in much more of Lexington and Frankfort more into a 2 to 4 range. We don't have a lot of data yet to hit this hard, but it's a signal that I keep seeing that is showing up. There is one other catalyst to it. There's a lot of what ifs, right? That is, if sleet were to get involved in this, especially in the very beginning stages of it, that would sleet can cut down your snow totals, just FYI, by nearly 1 full inch. 1 full inch can be given away to sleet. I know, that's a bummer. So that would reduce a lot of this. Less than an inch in many areas, and then maybe 1 to 2 east of 65. Seen it happen many times. You guys have been here for a while. You know what I'm talking about. So we're betting on the idea this is going to get into a colder profile and then make it all snow. And then that's when some of the fun and games will begin. So it's going to be layered up a bit like a cake, a bit of a challenge there to scrape on the windshield too, as it moves on by. Road conditions. This will be my last graphic I'm going to show on this event, and then I'll get into some of your questions real quick. Obviously, we're fine this morning. This afternoon, some icy roads will start to develop. This is going to be late afternoon that we're talking about, and mainly south of the parkways. Tonight into the morning hours, that's when things become a problem when it comes to the freezing rain, sleet, and snow combination, kind of pancaked on each other for several of our counties. And if not all of our area will be facing this. So it's going to be a bit difficult for those of you that work second and third shift. Plan ahead for that. I know the schools have got some decisions to make too, depending on how this unfolds tonight for early on your Friday. As Friday evolves, it's just cold and windy. There's not much snow, then flurries. Flurries linger long in these setups. So the main roads, as long as they're constantly being treated, they'll begin to improve. Side roads, though, are going to contain slick spots and slick travel really until we get back above freezing again and get a lot of sunshine. And that's going to take toward the end portion there of the weekend. Any questions? What can I try to explain? Angie Tawana said you're recovering for her tomorrow with a blog. Be earlier. No, the blog will be it'll be a little earlier, but about the same time tomorrow. But yeah, I will be here on sunrise tomorrow morning. Skating into work. Josh, definitely take some sleet over snow with this. Sleet is slick, but it's not as it can, in many cases, cannot be as impactful because of its depth compared to what snow is. But still, it can be slippery out there. Oops, I didn't see the spammer. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm slacking today. I'm slacking. Power outages, Todd, not too worried on that, other than the strong gusty winds. This is not enough ice accretion to cause power lines to weigh down and snap. Once you get over 0.2 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, that's when you technically get into ice storm level. That's when problems start to develop. But right now, this ice accretion looks to be minor. And if anything, based on these reports that I'm seeing right now coming in out of West Kentucky, where they were expecting some freeze and rain and they're actually getting sleet, there is an opportunity here where as this moves in, maybe the modeling is wrong on that profile and it will end up being majority sleet and not freeze and rain. And if that's a trend that we see show up here as we get into this afternoon, we're going to take the freeze and rain map off the table completely and just go with a sleet and snow accumulation map. And we'll do that as soon as we get more reports as how this develops this afternoon. But yes, there is a distinct possibility that decision could be made. The ground reports, again, are so important because the radar can only tell us so much, especially when they're up and running. They can only tell us so much. So your reports are very helpful for us and give us an idea of where to go with the forecast once we get the true reality, because we can't see every layer of the atmosphere in every area of wave country. That's impossible to do. We can only get some data way above and certainly data at the ground level, but that in between can't really see. Louisville's lucky because we have UPS. So we do get data from the pilots when they come into land at Ollie International, and they basically have a sensor, of course, that tells us if it's warming or getting colder, and they can pick out the warm layers that are coming in for a landing or taking off, and that helps us to determine whether or not a sleet or freeze and rain scenario is developing. But we all don't have Ollie International, right? So there you go. Tim, joining light apps are snow overs. That is part of the system, but again, that's not reaching the ground because we were talking about that earlier, how the dry air is going to show that for the next several hours. Our issue really, as far as getting a lot of ground reports, it's going to take until after about 3 to 4 o'clock. All right. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Shonda, not much ice or snow for Clark County? Not much. No, it's going to be minor issues on both. The wind chill. Oh, I forgot about the wind chill. Thank you so much for asking. Here is the winter weather advisory, by the way. We'll let you know if there's any changes. Kicks in at noon officially until 7 p.m. tomorrow night. I don't think we'll need the entire window of that. We'll update you all. But here's the wind chill forecast. Saturday morning, 5 below 0 in Louisville, 10 below Corden. It's going to get close to wind chill advisory, and we may get cold again but on Sunday, but wind chills will be more in single digits. So there you go. There's an improvement. All right, real quick, let me talk about the next week, and then I've got to get into the outlook for midday here. But we do have a chance, again, at some of that leading edge of moisture when it moves in Tuesday morning as it races by us. Still a brief overlap where there could be some brief freeze and rain. Again, minor. Otherwise, we're going to get into a setup where low pressures are going to repeat themselves in this kind of configuration. One after another, after another, after another, after another. Folks, that is a heavy rain setup on a cold ground that's got a lot of snow on it still. So yeah, my concern is going to be a lot of flooding concerns. Low-lying areas could flood. Some of the rivers could begin to rise. That'll be next week. They'll track that. I'll talk more about any potential on colder weather coming back at a later time once we get past this mess. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. You guys are awesome. See you on the flip side.